Hello, and thanks for joining the Want Weekly Live. My name is Walter Latham. I am your host, and I'm joined by Michelle Swiney McCombs, who is your co-host. Our technology manager, Gregory Coleman, will be doing the intros today. He would actually be standing in place of Michelle. Now, I do want to say that this live show will be rebroadcast on Sunday after 3 p.m. So if you have friends that missed it or you know someone that should listen to it, please let them know that it will be released again, rebroadcast again on Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, wherever we're out there. You can find the Want Weekly Podcast. Please like, follow, and share this podcast. We've been out here a couple years now. We're on our 102nd episode, and we want to keep on going and telling the truth and supporting that truth with fact. That's the key thing, support the truth with fact. Right? Today's show, we're going to talk about Juneteenth. Are we receptive to it? Is there a pushback? Are we just happy to get a bone that's just been thrown at us? So you can understand what the Walk Weekly's position is now by just, you throwing a bone out there so that you can pacify us for a little bit, relieve the pressure. Okay, so with that said, I want to turn it over to Gregory Coleman. And thank you again.
Great. Appreciate it, Walter. Am I coming in loud and clear?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to TWW Friday Live. Thank you to our live guest audience. And you can follow TWW and share this podcast by clicking the share button. TWW Friday Live is sponsored by Beauty by Ami Soap and Love and MSH Hair. Our intro and outro music is provided by Uncle Nephew. Our panel today is myself, Greg Coleman, of Illumination Media and Technology and engineer at TWW, and our very own Christopher Swiney, retired sanitation CEO of Johnny Ruth Catering. And will probably be joining us is the Honorable Gene Anthony Edwards, male district leader, 79th District in the Bronx, New York. And Ernest J. Robinson of Washington, D.C., U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, and senior consultant at B. Ernest Leadership, professional consultant. Juneteenth Memorial is the emancipation of the last enslaved Black Americans in the United States. Also known as Freedom Day, Juneteenth commemorates June 19, 1865, when the news of liberation came to Texas more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. African Americans across the state were made aware of their right to freedom on this day when Major General Gordon Granger arrived at Galveston, Texas with federal troops to read General Order Number 3 announcing the end of the Civil War and the freedom of all enslaved. Celebrating Juneteenth is celebrating America's constant pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. I represent the Juneteenth Freedom Festival, Staten Island Juneteenth Freedom Festival. Rossville, Staten Island is the home to the Sandy Ground community, the oldest continuously inhabited free settlement, Black settlement in the United States. Let's get started with a poem by author and poet Judy Andrews. Judy?
Hello, how are you? Happy Juneteenth. I don't know if we could say happy. I'll say in commemoration of this new holiday. It's, nice to be here with you all. I'll be reading some poetry. I guess I can begin. I wasn't sure if there was going to be another introduction, but this is from my book, The Gathering of Gemstones. The Gathering of Gemstones is a poetry collection that I wrote last year. The name of this piece is just words. Africa, royalty, Negro, nigger, kidnapped, stolen, slave, Middle Passage, America, breeding, whippings, the United States Constitution, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, 3/5 human, Independence Day, mulatto, segregation, colorism, classism, racism, sexism, the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, terrorism, Ku Klux Klan, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, Reconstruction, racial equality, Jim Crow, Gullah, Geechee, colored, black, integration, American, Black American, the Equal Rights Amendment, the Civil Rights Act, affirmative action, Afro-American, African American, a descendant of American slaves, 400 years, 1619, a project, reparations, freedom, America. Although he glares at me with eyes of rage and cuts into my breast his angry tongue, almost ripping my heart from its sad cage, I can't go back to the songs I once sung. His weapons of imprisonment still live in my DNA, and where bodies sway from tall trees dead, I will no longer give my bright life to a game that he can play. With clamor, I fight for my legality, freedom, and my right to true happiness. I have a zest for my equality, love, peace, joy, and even bouts of sadness. He will never take away the desire I have for life each day to climb higher. America, Africa. Although her labor pains were never known, she birthed a glorious world of jewels. Many nations stole her gems that were thrown around the globe as their deeds became cruel. They tried to break her spirit, and they did. They called her humiliating, sick names, but she tapped into her power and hid. Loving spirits held her. She overcame. Now, miracles uplift, protect, comfort her when she feels as if the globe is blind. Just a few lovers asked if she were hurt. Some gave her money. Some were even kind. A murderous disease, beastly hatred, and supreme supremacy stalks her. But she knows her soul is sacred. Africa. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Outstanding.
Thank you.
All right, Greg.
Song.
Okay. Welcome to the show, folks. That was a fantastic opening to the show. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you very much. You're
Told it
welcome.
all
Yes.
in one poem. That said a lot and touched everything. Now we want to welcome an activist who I follow on social media. So again, I want to start by saying I want to welcome an activist that I follow on social media. I met through my wife, and his words and his teachings are, for me, life-changing. He is rooted in love for his people, love for us. And and his name is Andino Ward, aka Dem Dread. Welcome to the Walt
Thank
Whitman.
you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction.
Yes. So Andino, before we get into what Juneteenth is and what it means to you and what it should mean to all of us, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, that that is a question that I always kind of hate because obviously being 67 years old, there's just a whole lot of things that that one can say. So I'm just going to make it very plain in the fact that I've always been, since the age of 8, really involved in the struggle, and at the age of 8, I can say was the enlightenment, of being able to understand exactly what was happening through my father, through the media, in terms of the struggle of our people. And at the age of 9, I actually met Malcolm X. Very interesting. The folks that lived next door to us were the Morrises, and the mother of the family was Malcolm X's administrative assistant. And I got 15 minutes with Malcolm because he came always to this house next door in preparation for going to Mosque 32, which was located at Broad and Erie in Philadelphia. So from that point on, after that meeting with him and 15 minutes of that, it really sparked the movement in my heart and my understanding to really be more activated and an activist in regards to our people, which I did throughout high school, throughout much of my adult life, and today am still doing. Beyond that, there are a million other things that I could say and that I could tell you and experiences, but I won't. But I will just, calculate it in the way that has always been the thrust in my life, to really try to educate our people and to understand the nature of this thing that has occurred with us and that impacts upon us. And even today, still is an albatross around our necks.
Absolutely. Well, the show is a Juneteenth, a memorial, and an awakening, and we want to get right into what Juneteenth means to you, what it should represent to all of us, and how do you feel going forward with the direction that the country is taking with Juneteenth.
Well, Juneteenth itself is just another situation in the history of our people that completely speaks to the pain, the suffering, and the agony that we have undergone. I don't find June the 10th to be basically a celebration. As a matter of fact, it's more a memorial scenario, because I find it hard to put the word celebration with the death of our people. I've always never understood how that word can fit into something that obviously speaks to the killing, the maiming, the destruction of our lives and of our environments. And this is just another. The other part of it with Juneteenth is the fact that we are not aware that there are exactly 40 other towns that were Black towns that met the same fate, that were destroyed by basically, racism and white supremacy. So we're talking one town of 40. This has been an ongoing plague upon us. We sought to remove ourselves from the albatross of slavery and white supremacy. We sought to calculate and build our own lives, our own environments, our own economy, and in every single attempt to do so, it has been denigrated, destroyed, and we have been murdered in the context of white supremacy and its ability and need to control us and not to let us have the freedom that we were entitled to. So when you say Juneteenth, to me, there is no celebration and should never be a celebration, because this is just another day in the existence of our people. I mean, we don't even recognize the fact that the Confederate states that were involved in slavery did not actually want to even allow this process to take place. It took an entire war to calculate, once again, supremacy. Who would win? Would the South win and have the ability to continue slavery, or would the North win and be able to dispose of slavery, but at the same time not allow those Southern states to actually succeed, or secede, I should say, from them? So we don't even understand that, there's a reason that basically Juneteenth took place. And it was just a perpetuation of that exact war that took place to free us, which never really did free us, because it is intentional that the people living in Black Wall Street, were destroyed the way they were destroyed. And it's also intentional that those who were living in Texas, and not only Texas, because if you didn't know, this also was the case in Delaware and Kentucky. These were also Union bordering states that did not accept, the aspect of obviously emancipation. And they didn't even accept it until December the 6th of 1865. They fought and they tried to keep it from happening. So it wasn't just Texas. There were other states basically in the Union that did not want to adhere to the emancipation. But when we talk of Texas and we talk of that entire situation, we have to understand there were 250,000 Black people, 250,000 Black people who were still being maintained in slavery in Texas. And as a result of that, Texas and several other states who had the economy that they had, which was based upon cotton, did not want those slaves to know that they were free. They knew, the states knew that emancipation had come, but they wanted to ensure their revenue for at least as many years as they could possibly get out of it. And they needed the slave labor to be able to do so, because those states were well involved in that process. So people, want to say, well, yeah, we should celebrate this because they were freed, but they were intentionally kept. They were intentionally held in slavery. And if the Union soldiers, because there were Union soldiers there in Texas, there were just not enough to be able to fight against the aspect of the Texas, bureaucracy wanting to maintain slavery, which is why the general had to come into play that you mentioned, Granger, and he had to bring an exorbitant amount of Union troops to force the issue.
But I want to break in a little bit, and I want to ask, now that Juneteenth is a national holiday, and it's not something that we should celebrate in the sense of a big celebration, right? It's a memorial. We should remember those who gave their lives and were intentionally kept in captivity. But how do we go forward with Juneteenth? I'm asking, what do we do now? How do we use this day to further our cause, to liberate our people?
I think this is Judy. I think we should educate our children in understanding the significance of this day. I think we should look at the history. There's so many technological displays that you can go back and review the history or learn the history. There are also the slave narratives that are distributed through the Library of Congress, where you can listen to the actual enslaved people that the WPA Federal Writers Project did in the 1930s during the Depression of former enslaved people who told their stories about the horrors of slavery. There's so many different ways to educate not just our children, but people, adults as well, because there are a lot of adults who have no idea about Juneteenth or even, the history of Galveston, Texas, as well as the Confederate States. There's so much history that our people have brought to, America that still has not been tapped. And during this climate of, you know, racial strife, more racial strife, that is pretty detrimental and causing so much trauma. It's important that we, begin to, you know, take this structure apart. Otherwise, we're going to have, more killings, more brutality, more issues with racism in, institutionalized places, and we won't get very far. So this holiday can be used as a teaching time.
Okay, absolutely. I agree 100%. We do need to make people aware of, first of all, that people don't even know about Juneteenth, right? People didn't know about the Black Wall Street. These are things that were hidden away from us, never taught to us in schools, never spoken about. And Andino, I want to ask you, in light of what we witnessed the other day with the young men in Ocean City, Maryland,
Mm.
where do you think we are right now as far as educating our people understanding what they're truly up against and how we're going to move and maneuver to get through this? I was pointing out the episode that happened a couple of days ago in Ocean City, Maryland, with the young men who were on the boardwalk and they were stopped for smoking and vaping and brutalized by the police. How do you feel? What is your opinion of this holiday being presented to us finally, and what's going on now? How does it relate? Where do you see us going right now? Do you see it as a
Okay.
positive or more the same?
No, I see the Juneteenth being signed into federal law as what Tariq Nasheed refers to as symbolic reparations. You know,
Mhm.
when they wanted to stop Asian American hate, they signed those hate bills faster than quick. But for us, they still haven't signed our hate bills, but they gave us symbolic reparations, which is in the form of federal, what New York did it last year. Governor Cuomo made it a state holiday last year, and that's why everybody in New York was off from work today. But yeah, it's nothing more than symbolic reparations, and to me, it doesn't really have any teeth. There's a comedian. I think it was Walter that said it to me. It was a comedian. I don't know whether it was Dick Gregory or Richard Pryor, but if you gave them a holiday saying today is KKK Day, it's like, okay, hell yeah, I'll stay home. It's a holiday. Happy KKK Day. Symbolic reparations. And as far as the young men being brutalized on the boardwalk, to my understanding, most states have banned smoking and vaping on beaches and boardwalks. So, I don't think they should have been brutalized, but at the same time, as black men, as young black men, we can't put ourselves in a position to give them a chance to even approach us. You know what I mean? Don't even put yourself in a
I
position to be approached.
I agree. I agree totally. But at the end of the day, that's something that should have been a summons and moved along. There's no need for that kind of brutality and aggression from the police because it's a summons. It's plain and simple. You pass along a summons, you give them a citation, and you send them on their way. You don't beat someone's child and tase them for vaping. I mean,
Mhm.
so where do we go? Again, they sign these things into law, and at the same time, they're brutalizing somebody somewhere else. So it almost it's a slap in the face. It's comical to say that we're going to recognize this day, but yet you can't get an anti-lynching bill passed. There's so
Yeah.
many other things, and I'm not discounting Juneteenth, because I think, you know, every measure of progress is necessary, it's needed, right? And it's important. But I also think that when these things get glamorized and they co-opted, we are not controlling this, you know, and that's the problem. When you can sign into law a bill to celebrate or to acknowledge what happened on that day, and young men are still brutalized and assaulted on a boardwalk
Mhm.
in another state for something that is a citation would have taken care of it. I just say, where are we? What are we doing? We're still walking backwards here.
Yeah, and also we have this critical race theory issue going on where they don't want the 1619 project being taught in schools in Texas, of all places. They don't want it taught in America, period. If you look at the Republican Party, you also have the issue of defunding the police. You know, you have the issue of dealing with civil unrest and police brutality, where on the one hand, they're telling you, you know, police brutality doesn't really exist. It's something that's deeper than that, you know, that I heard from New York anyway. Police brutality is definitely an issue. And of course, you know, we have our primary elections coming up next week. You know, there are so many people talking about it. We have a police officer who's planning to, a former police officer who's now running for mayor, and he has ideas about ways in which to not defund the police. So we have to look at so many issues that you know, Mr. Andino did point out that we're still talking about, that we were talking about in the 1960s, the 1940s, and the 1920s, and during Reconstruction in the 1870s. So it's important that I mean, we've been doing a lot of talking over the last 100, you know, and 56 years, but progress seems to be, you know, at a snail's pace. And I just think the best thing that maybe we can begin doing is creating the opportunities in our local communities. Start there at least. But you know what's really interesting, and I really thought about it after Mr. Andino said this a day ago. You know, we've been doing this grassroots work for 400 years, and it seems to be we are still in the same place. You know, there's still a lot of police brutality. There's an injustice. There's criminalization. We have, you know, so many people in prison for crimes they didn't do. Uh, you know, America is not great again. It never was great. And we need to find ways in our own communities to create ways for us to thrive. You know, when we were segregated in those towns that were destroyed, we were thriving, and we didn't need anything from any outside sources. So we maybe have to come back to that in our own local communities where we can thrive that way.
I agree 100%. I think part of the problem is we're waiting on a system who has consistently been brutal to us, and
Hmm.
to fix itself. And it won't fix itself. It is meant to work the way it works. We are the one thing that's consistent about this country. It's its brutality as it is towards African Americans, blacks, people, brown people, poor people. It is consistent in how it treats those people. And in order, you know, signing into law a holiday is not going to change anything. It's symbolic, and it's good. People need to see symbolism has its place, right? But we need to see
Right.
action. We need to see things moving. And if we don't get to see those things, it is more discouraging. It is deflating when you do sign into law these holidays, and there's no teeth to any of this. There's no backbone to it.
Except that we have maybe a week or, a day where we are remembering and honoring, the freedom that we wish we had. The same thing with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day. It's almost kind of lost now, we, in terms of service, in terms of helping others, it's pretty difficult to see much that has changed since that holiday. So, we celebrate it and we say all of these wonderful things and we do the service for that day. But that service has to be initiated throughout the entire year. And it has maybe, it has to be baby steps, but we've been talking about baby steps for centuries. There is progress, but it's like at a snail's pace. So
Well,
how
I don't.
long
Yes.
do we wait and what do we do while we wait in the meantime?
Well, I don't. This is Walter. I don't see progress to that degree. Right. I remember coming to New York when I was a teenager, and I am Andino's age. I'm 67. I just turned 68. Matter of fact, this month. So coming to New York and getting a job in financial services when I was a teenager, and then observing, all right, knowing that where I came from, North Carolina, it was like this, straight in your face racism. A white person or he'll come up to you and say, well, I don't like the N-word. I don't like you. And we were trying to, we don't like you, cracker. I don't like you. So what are you going to do about it? Okay. So that's the way it was. It was up front, overt. I mean, nobody was hiding anything. But coming to New York where it's hidden, it's just embedded. It's it's covert.
Yes.
It's not overt. It's covert. And I dealt with that as a teenager working in a bank, and I saw it. And I wanted to be, put it this way, I was a radical from the time I got my first job at a bank. All right. Just to look around and see. And I would say, where are all the black people? There are a lot of black people in New York. Where are they? Okay. I saw it up close, personal. I mean, it's everywhere. And the thing, what really, gets just browns me up is the fact that we lay down and we take it. The same speeches that Malcolm X made back in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. The same Muhammad Ali. I was looking at clips of him. Could be made today. There's been no change. What changes have we had? All right. I mean, what does it take? What do we have to do to bring about change? You give us a holiday, fine. Yeah. They gave us the right to vote, fine. Yeah. But we still walk back to our jobs and our homes and our schools, and we're still suffering. All right.
Still
one thing.
second class.
Exactly.
I want to point out they signed this into law in the very states that, first of all, that were moving at a snail's pace are actively overturning voting rights, changing all kinds of things going on in these states that claim that they want to be on board ushering this new found love for black folk, right?
Yeah.
And yet they are dismantling everything that any stride that we made, if ever so slight, they're being taken away as they give you this holiday, this symbol of, or this gesture, or whatever they want to call it. But, if you look deep enough at it, it's bullcrap. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's nothing to it. And I don't want to sound like that I'm not willing to work or just everything is negative. But how can we be happy for something and it's a backhanded slap. You giving me something in one hand and you taking 2 or 3 things with the other hand. You're not giving me a damn thing. You're actually taking more away from me. Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
this is Greg. I think one of the things that, this is another effort that I see that they do. They put us to sleep with things. And I mean, it's an effort to put us to sleep. This is a sedation, giving us a holiday. I can remember when, it was a big deal. And I don't even know if people of this generation are even conscious of it anymore. We used to celebrate Black Solidarity Day.
Yes, that's
For a
right.
while, and I think the significance of that is lost. And, they give us something else to sedate us with. I think, they sedated us with the first Black president. And
Oh,
we
yeah,
sat
definitely.
around, we thought we
Definitely.
arrived, we thought we had it made, and this that everything is all good, but you still don't do what should be done to eliminate police brutality, to eliminate brutality across the board. I think it's Judy. You brought up a great point at the critical race theory. I mean, the one way that you keep people down is disconnect them from their history.
Absolutely.
And every time you turn around, they want to rewrite their brutal history. You can see it happening now with what happened on January 6th. They want to call it a walk in the park when that was brutal. People died. It was I mean, it's a joke to even call it civil disobedience. It was an outright treacherous, mutinous
resurrection.
insurrection. I mean, and just like you glamorize people, the Confederacy, and people are allowed in this country to embrace and romanticize the Confederacy. You want to rewrite that history and say these people were fighting for their culture. No, they were mutinous, slave-loving. It was economic. It was social. It was everything. You want to rewrite that to say it wasn't that bad. And the same way you wanna do with with slavery. You want to make it seem like these folks didn't have any choice. So you want to erase the 1619 Project. You want to eliminate, downplay what happened. But and again, this is no knock on the Jews at all. What happens if somebody tries to minimize what happened during the Holocaust?
Right.
That's not allowed. You're anti-Semitic. Yes. Yeah. That's right. They're defending their history. And we have to defend ours. We can't let it be ignored. We can't forget it. And we have to reteach it to our children and the generations that come. We can't leave it up to them.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you guys, because this is my feeling on the whole situation. Coming off this historic election and all the civil unrest that we experienced over the last 4 years, and the constant I don't even know what to call the Trump presidency that it was, but it was just a constant,
a charade.
You were
It was a charade.
But it wasn't. Well, we know it was a charade, but you were just under pressure every day from everything that was that administration. And I think with the coming off of Black Lives Matter and all of these movements, I think this stuff is being co-opted. It's a way for them they are monetizing our suffering now. And that's why you're seeing all these documentaries on Tulsa and this Juneteenth holiday and all of these things coming to the forefront right now. In my opinion, I think they're just profiting off of our suffering. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that we are undergoing a renaissance in terms of the arts. You're seeing a lot of innovative new ideas. I know in publishing, we have more African American authors being published at this time in history than ever before. That's one thing where you're not just writing what they used to call poverty porn. You're seeing stories about, the supernatural, with this Lovecraft country. We never saw anything like that before. We're seeing horror movies with Black folks in them. You have a lot of issues that are coming to the forefront, but this is not new. This happened during the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s, where you had these new ideas discussed. You had Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, discussing which is the right way to go in terms of dealing with supremacy. And I think what is really bad at this point in history is that we don't have many leaders, many trusting leaders that we can turn to who, won't take a buck to get what they want.
Yeah,
They
true.
they don't have
Yeah.
any, any I guess righteousness.
There's no backbone. There's no
Right.
backbone. They're going along, and I think our suffering, the movements are all being co-opted. These kids. No, the truth is really not being told. And I think the moment our story is mainstream, right? The way and with their hand on it, they're manipulating it. And
Yeah.
I don't know, Andino, what do you think about that? Are you back with us?
I think he's back.
I think we're having. I
just connected him, but he must be having some audio problems.
Maybe
Yeah.
some
Some mic
headset
problems. Yeah.
What do you say, Gene?
I was watching the Ellen show earlier this afternoon, and there was this guy named Caitlin. He's openly gay. Sometimes he dresses like a man. Sometimes he dresses like a woman. Anyway, he has this podcast, and it's like really popular. It's called OM Caitlin. And they asked him about his take on Juneteenth, and he said that his show is going to be he's going to have gay black men from different generations going back to like the 50s and 60s, and the show is going to be about how being black and being gay, how they've made progress.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
yes,
we can.
yes.
I'm jumping off.
Wait, go ahead.
Okay, so now you can hear me.
Yes, we got you, brother.
Okay, so and I've heard everything that everyone has said, and everybody is right on point. But let me give you a twist that basically, again, see, I always look at this stuff in a context that is, I guess, way beyond exactly what, obviously we're being presented with. And I want you to think about this. We live in a system that has always perpetuated itself in a very dangerous manner with us as black folks. But it's done so always in the context of wanting to control us. So think about this. In any system, there must be someone who is, and I'm holding my hand over my head, and there must be someone who is on the bottom. And the only reason that the folks at the top have justification to be at the top is because they have someone at the bottom. We have been that bottom for them from 1619 moving forward. And they have kept us in that context consistently. You think about basically the hood, and you think about the fact that the hood is particularly, and I'm going to say intentionally situated. It's made by the system, and it funds and feeds a myriad of entities. There's a plate that basically the hood sits on, and it's divided between the legal system, the economic system, the judicial system, the prison system, you name it. And it feeds all of those. Because you see, if you continue to keep a people in the plantation like you kept them when you were in slavery, which is exactly what the hood is, no education, no opportunities, and nothing but basically abject poverty, you ensure that you can feed all of those establishments. Think about what would happen if the hood was not the hood and police. Where would police go and what would they do? Their minimal situation would be such that they could not warrant their existence beyond a certain point. But because they have us where they have us, and they have basically made us such that we don't have the availability to really move beyond it, it justifies their existence. It feeds their existence. So what I'm saying is, we are always going to be in a place where they are just doing things and they can do things that just keep us moving in the direction that they want us to move in. And they have deprived us of one of the most important factors that a people can have. And that is the factor of unification. We are unable to unify as a people, and that's intentional. That is intentional. They keep us in a state of disarray. The thing you're talking about with gays, I mean, I can't even believe that this has become so relevant and so prevalent, and it stands alongside we as Black people and the struggle that we're in, but yet it stands parallel to us and gets exactly the same amount of attention. And our people gravitate to this. I mean, I don't care if you're gay. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is we have basically lived some of the most bizarre situations in the world. The Holocaust, 10 years, 10. And yet Israel has received 80 billion and beyond dollars during that war that just took place. It just ended basically, and still hasn't ended, between Hamas and Israel, and all that stuff that Israel was doing to the Palestinians. At the very same time that was happening, the United States sent them $380 some odd million. But you look at basically the fact that the Japanese have received reparations for 4 years of internment, 4 years of internment, and every Japanese family that was part and parcel of being able to show that their ancestors were part of that internment received $20,000 each family. The Jews, billions, the Japanese, 20,000 per family. And we can't even say the word reparations.
Hey Andino, I have a question for you. This is something that came up on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. This same type of argument, and what I said was, because we were talking about stopping Asian American hate, and I said this is what I had presented to the panel. I said, if somebody from China is a tourist and they come over to America and they get hurt, they can call their mother, which is the Chinese government, and America has explained to the Chinese government. If somebody Jewish gets hurt, somebody from Israel is going to call the United States and say, hey, one of mine got hurt on your land. What are you prepared to do about that? Black people, we don't have a father. We don't have a father to call and say, hey, our mother, America, is beating us. Who do we call to save us? The Japanese have a father. The Jews have a father. The Chinese, they have a father. And talking about their mainland, we don't have a father. To that, you say what?
What I say is this. I say that basically when, America says that it is the greatest experiment on the planet as far as democracy, they're lying. The greatest experiment in America is you and I and what they've done to us. Because you see, everything that every other culture has the availability of doing, we do not have. We have no sound roots. We have no knowledge of culture. You are looking basically at one of the greatest experiments to ever take place in the condition of human beings, to literally erase, literally like a hard drive, to erase everything on the drive and to then implant your basically situation into their being. And, as the one thing that we all have to remember when we look at the aspect of what's happened, Juneteenth is a situation, obviously, once again, of the cruelty of a people on another people to keep them in a position of subjugation. When you look at Wall Street, Black Wall Street, the same thing, subjugation, keep them in that. The one thing that has basically kept us in check is the fact that supremacy has one final card that it will always use if it does not basically accomplish what it needs to without this one final solution. And you know what that is? Ruthlessness. The ability to be inhumane, the ability to be completely devoid of any humanity or morality, and to kill. Incessantly to kill, to maim, to destroy, and to provoke a fear that is beyond all comprehension in that which it wants to control. That's why the prisons exist. That's why the police exist. And that's why they're capable of doing what they do. Because, see, that is the final solution for them. So we can protest and we can talk all the things we talk, write all the books we want to write, have all the speeches we want to write, we want to have. But the very context of you stepping into a realm that makes you dangerous to the system of supremacy means that you will wind up like Malcolm X. You will wind up like Martin Luther King. You will wind up like Medgar Evers. You will wind up like the boy, man, I can't think of his name. I got so many things in my head. It's crazy. But the bottom line is, this is so calculated that it's nuts. And we don't sit back and see the calculation because, see, it gives you the holiday, like I think Greg said, or Chris, it gives you the holiday, and basically a couple miles away, it's beating somebody on the head and killing them. At the exact same time that George Floyd's verdict came down and they found that cop guilty, 12 miles away, a black girl was being killed by the cops. Another guy was being killed by the cop who said that basically, she was using her taser when she was actually shooting him with a gun. We don't understand what these people really do. And the fact of what it is that basically, they are capable of doing. And the fact that we're sequestered in this madness.
Absolutely. I want to piggyback a little on the gay and lesbian thing, as far as it's related to us, right? Because I had this conversation with somebody, and he said to me that how could I think the way that I'm thinking, because we are oppressed the same way. And I said, I don't want to dismiss or diminish your suffering, because I don't. But I don't think it belongs in the same context as what happened to black people in this country. I said, because you can walk out in the street and nobody has to know that you're gay. You can keep that from people. You can keep that to yourself, and you can go about your business and be free. But I cannot hide my blackness. The moment I step out, this is who I am, and this is a threat to people. So you have an advantage that I don't have. And your story and your walk is not the same. And I did say to him, if you fixed my problem, everybody else's problem would be fixed as well. Because the original sin is what needs to be fixed. Because you got away with slavery and the brutality that you inflicted on a people, and it just trickled down into every other lifestyle. And it originated with the subjugation of black people.
Okay, let me just say one thing, if I can interject, guys. One thing about white people, and I'm not trying to stereotype any particular race, is that they are willing to die to maintain what they have, to maintain control. They're willing to die to keep the power.
Can I add one quick thing? One quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One quick thing. They're also willing to kill their own to maintain that power.
That's right.
If their own step out of basically the realm of what they want, they will kill them too. And that makes them basically an enemy that is beyond comprehension. Beyond comprehension. Because if you're willing to kill everybody else you need to kill to stay in control, and you are willing to kill your own, then you are basically in a whole other level.
That's right.
Of inhumanity. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Thank you for pointing that out, because it's in line with what my next thought is. If you look at what happened when they cut this guy's head off in Syria or wherever he was, this journalist. All right, when they cut I forgot the name of the group.
Khashoggi.
Anyway, Islamists, they cut his head off. And they had it on TV about how barbaric this is. But if you look back at the history of what they have done, that pales in comparison.
Very much so. And you know what's so terrible about it? And believe me, I am just so tired. I understand why basically there's a need for me to die. You know what I mean? I have reached that age where it's time for me to pass on because I'm seeing so much of the same stuff. I am so appalled. I am so appalled that I see black folks sitting on television who are well educated or who are in the media, and they're saying things like, yeah, you know, America basically is just such a great country and so on and so forth. And I'm like, who the hell are you? Where are you? Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, America has no right to point the finger at China, Russia, or any other country for human rights violations.
Yep.
No, they have no ability in the sanity of life to speak that bizarre and untruth to others. And yet, if you look at the history of the United States, and follow me on this because this is real, we have placed sanctions on other countries to the multitudes, but not one country has ever placed sanctions upon the United States for the cruelty it has exacted upon you and I and our people in the history of these United States. Not one sanction, but yet we have put. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. To speak to that, Andino, I think one time, this is back when Kofi Annan was in. He was a UN ambassador. He was in charge of the United Nations, and he had sent out like a memo or pretty much disgraced the United States for its participation in chattel slavery and Jim Crow, and that's the only person that ever stood out was Kofi Annan. And you saw after he said that all the hell he was catching.
Right, but he did not place a sanction. See, there was a difference. He made a statement, but a sanction basically is the thing that like locks up your money. A sanction is the thing that locks up your trade. A sanction is a thing that locks up your movement in the world. That has never been done to the United States. I understand exactly what you're saying about Kofi Annan, but no one has ever placed a sanction on us that does what we do to them. I mean, look at the sanctions on Russia.
I want to interject there. I think Muammar Gaddafi stood at the UN and he wanted to bring those sanctions. He mentioned
and that's why, yeah, exactly.
And
yes,
that's why he no longer exists.
Exactly. And see, there's something about that we need to recognize. And see, this is what basically just bothers me. We don't see these things. The United States shines itself as a bastion of morality and righteousness and all of this, and it speaks all this trash to the world. And then you got black folks sitting around talking about, you know, America the Great. Yeah, no, America. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why are you saying this? Why are you sitting in front of the television cameras and acting like you're a few nuggets short of a Happy Meal? Like you don't even understand.
Hey, Andino, I'll tell you what, Andino, I've been right there. Look, I'm 51. I just turned 51 in March, and I'm a community activist. I'm also a low-level elected official. I see the buck dancing on television. I see all the nonsense that's going on, and I tell Walton, I tell all my confidence, I really wish I was a sellout. I really wish I was blind. I really wish I was ignorant, because I feel like James Baldwin when he says to be a Negro in America and to be relatively conscious is to be angry almost all the time. That's how I feel.
Right.
The same way you feel, Andino, that's the damn way I feel every damn day. Go ahead, brother.
Well, no, I mean, and it's right. It's right, because I mean, it shows how insidious this system is in what it's done to us. How insidious it is. I mean, we are the only people on the planet who have no understanding of who we are in reality. See, you know, the Chinese can come over here and do all the things they do, but they got a place that they can go to and that they can communicate with and take, you know, their yearly trips for vacations and this, that, and the other to their homeland. The Italians, everybody has a place to go. Now, everybody says that obviously we have Africa. Well, let's be for real. Africans don't even like us.
And when you
Africans
go to Africa,
don't even like us.
yeah, when you go to Africa, you are considered American if you're African American and born in this country. When you go over
Yes.
there, they ask you, "Well, you're African American, my sister. Oh, what country are you from?" And there's
Yeah.
a saying in Africa. They say there are no black people in Africa because everyone is related to a specific ethnic group. Which is something that's very different over here.
And that's what I'm saying.
Honest, Africa, and let's be honest, Africa doesn't even control Africa.
Yeah.
For real.
That's
For real.
true. That is very
For
true,
real.
Chris. You hit it.
And
Definitely.
and if you haven't followed Africa lately, the Chinese basically are the new colonizers in Africa. And do you know what they're doing? I mean, it amazed me when I was doing some research for a podcast, that I'm going to do, and I found this out. The Chinese have become so articulate at looking at the aspect of colonization and what everybody else did that they said, you know what? The one mistake we will not make is we will not basically make what we're about to do in Africa something of violence. We will use certain measures to ensure our success. They literally placed Chinese dudes in various African villages and cultures as the king of that particular village. And they basically are obviously having sex with the African women and producing these offspring that will eventually move into the same realm. And they are denigrating the entire African culture because they will take it and make it theirs. I mean, that is basically a beautiful thing if you think of it in the context of the madness that they have seen and that they obviously say, we will do it a different way. We will take them,
Hey, Andino, also to speak to what you're talking about the cerebral takeover. They've also placed Chinese men in various police departments in different tribal areas within different African nations. They got Chinese police officers, and you know how people look at police officers from a position of authority. So that's another mind game they're running down there.
I mean, look, we are so messed up. So, and when I say that, I want you to understand, I'm not saying that in the context of putting my people down. I'm not saying it that way, but I'm saying that, time has not been our friend. And see, supremacy works on the basis of time. Everything does. That's why Trump is not in jail today. That's why basically all those knuckleheads that, obviously he pardoned aren't in jail, because time works in their system against everyone else because they control it. This is the statement that I always make to people. He who can make the laws, write the laws, can break the laws because he can change the laws. And that's exactly what they are and what they do. I mean, there is no reason that basically we should have to go to them to make Juneteenth a holiday. We are literally going to the oppressor to make this a holiday for us. And then what do? And check this, please check this and do your own research. They make it a federal holiday. They don't make it basically a holiday for everyone. Yep. And do you know why they make it a federal holiday? Check out the economics of what that does to the federal government and how much money it saves. It's not intentional, but at the same time, they will make sure it has no effect on the overall general economy because everybody else can pick and choose as to whether they want to do it or not. It's amazing.
Each state can say they're going to give their workers off or not. It's not across the board.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Martin Luther King Day.
Exactly.
A lot of companies that are open.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we don't see this. We're out jumping.
It's going to be a economic boost to the economy because now that it's a federal law, guess what you're going to be seeing next year? Instead of seeing a bunch of Father's Day commercials, you're going to start seeing a lot of Black Friday, Juneteenth.
That's right.
Sales on TV.
Yes.
All the niggas are going to run to Macy's and Walmart. All the niggas going to go running and shopping.
Let me tell you. You know
And it's
when
the
I learned.
absolute truth. Yes, it is. It's
You
the
know when
truth.
I learned that. Let me tell you, I learned this basically when I was in the struggle as a teenager in high school and what have you. And we were like the black student union, and I was the president of it in my high school. And they kicked us out because we had protested against the treatment of the black folks in Richard Allen Projects, which was in North Philly behind Temple University. And Rizzo was the police commissioner, and he was an evil dude. And he came to the high school and arrested all of us for basically calling a walkout. And the funny thing about it is, across from the high school, and I don't want to make this long, but across from the high school was the Amish Farmers Market, and they used to bring in the best food. Nobody ate lunch in the cafeteria. We used to go across the street to the Amish market. But the thing that was funny about all this is, right next to the Amish market was the 14th district, police district, right across the street. So Rizzo and his boys just handcuffed us and walked us right across the street and put us in cells for 4 hours. Well, the high school kicked us out, and we went to court to fight, and we did get back, but they gave us a new school in the park. And that's where we were. Well, one day, basically, we were like, dashiki'd up and, froze out to here and cornrows. And, the park was like basically a little Africa to some degree. But one day I went across to a store to get a dashiki, a new dashiki that I had seen in the window. I thought it was really nice. And when I go in the store, they don't know I'm in there. There was no bell or anything. I just walked in and I'm waiting for someone to come to the counter. And I overhear this conversation back there. And these two black dudes were talking about basically ordering new material, and new dashikis. And every place they were talking about ordering it from had nothing to do with us. It was like basically all these white companies that I recognized the names, and it made me think, because I was like very dismayed. I left that shop that day and they never knew I was there, never brought anything. And I started to do research, and I became so dismayed because what I found was Afro Sheen, Afro Picks, dashikis, and all this other stuff that we were consuming was not even basically being made by our people.
Mm-hmm.
They had co-opted the entire movement, and they were making tons of money on us. Tons. And then one day we woke up and all of that was gone. And all of a sudden, here we are with Superfly, brothers walking around all pimped out with these big hats, big cars. Linda Lovelace is now on the screen in basically movies doing Deep Throat, and disco is here. And we are just completely wiped out, completely discombobulated. And we're now doing this whole new thing of, being basically black exploitation in the movies. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, it was very disheartening because it taught me something very valuable, that we think that we control these things and we are really being controlled by the system. It, no matter what, will prevail. And I don't care what you do, it will latch onto it and take it and make it something that makes money for itself. And you will think that you are the sum and total of what's happening, and you're not. And that's exactly what I'm seeing today. Look at what basically you see online if you go and you see all of these, companies that seem to have popped up with all of these dashikis and all of this African garb and so on and so forth. And then when you basically attempt to order, all of a sudden you find out that it's a Chinese company in China.
Again, co-opting
Exactly.
the movement.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we don't see it. I'm looking at sisters and brothers who, are very astute and very influential in obviously the whole aspect of, what's happening to us as black folks. And I'm trying to figure out what it is basically they're doing, because they're looking like, black Kardashians or, some, and they're wearing, Chanel and all these names. And I'm trying to figure out, do you understand that, number one, these people hated you and still hate you? Mm. These people didn't make these clothing for you. These were made basically for white folks. And here you are hungering and thirsting and feeding their economy and not your own. And it just goes on and on and on and on. I mean, commercials now basically where you've got, families, black, here you are, it's a black woman, it's a white woman, and they're now a family and they have kids. You got two dudes, one black, one white. Family, here's the kids. It's just amazing how they're controlling all of this and moving it in the directions they want to move it in. Because if you control the narrative, you control the message.
Absolutely.
And we have never controlled our narrative. Never.
Hold on, I have a question for Andino, and this may be somewhat controversial, but you know what? I'm always a seeker of truth, a seeker to light. So I really don't care if I hurt anybody's feeling. Juneteenth is a celebration or a memorial of chattel slavery. Well, the end of chattel slavery, and it is germane to Black Americans. What do you feel about some of these anchor babies from West Africa or some of these anchor babies from the Caribbean that are first generation being born in America that have managed to migrate into the system of being a Black American and now taking platforms and speaking on behalf of Black people and Black issues and things of that nature, yet they have no identity when it comes to being a Black America because ancestrally they are Caribbean or West African. To that you say what, brother?
I say that once again, basically, the system has found a way to co-opt exactly what we're doing. It basically allows people to come into the fray who really do not have the full complement of who and what we are as Black folks in America.
And when they come over here, they separate themselves from African American people who were born here. Exactly. They separate themselves and they tell their children, because I was a teacher for 27 years, and they will tell their children, do not hang out with them. And they all go to one group. All of the Caribbean kids are on one side. The African American kids born in America are on one side. They are actually taught this. And what I learned is that there was a Windrush, a Windrush group of people in Britain that suffered through the immigration process there, and they came over here. Many of them are from the Windrush group, and they came here. So once they got here, they disassociated themselves, but they took advantage of the civil rights that the African American people fought for who were born here.
Yeah.
What,
so we have
what
that
also
issue.
happens. What also happens too is that they too watch media, and we are portrayed as stupid, lazy, worthless, and they come from India. They come from all over. They come from all of these places, and they come with that attitude that they are better than us because we are stupid and we are beneath them. But every struggle that we fought for them now to come over and benefit from all the pain and suffering, because they are taught a certain way, they see it on them on their programming, where they're from, and this is what they believe.
Chris, this is why I wanted Andino to speak about that, because to your point, Chris, media takeout is owned by a Nigerian, and all media takeout shows is Black Americans doing dumb stuff, doing asinine things. It's owned by a Nigerian. World Star Hip Hop is owned by a white man. So that's why I wanted Andino to speak on, what do you think about these Black people from other nations besides America that have managed to assimilate into Black culture? Go ahead.
They've been told emphatically that, and they've been shown a narrative that says you're not one of them, although you may look like them. And we're going to hand them to you like we've handed them to everyone else. And now you can go ahead. Have you seen the show on TV? And see, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watch it intentionally because I'm trying to see what they want to do and what they're doing and how they're doing it. Have you seen the show Abishola or Bob?
Oh yeah,
loves Abishola.
Abishola, yeah.
Have you seen this?
That is
my heart, Abishola.
I'm like, wow.
The writer is an African woman, an African woman from England.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
By way of Nigeria.
But and I'm trying to meet. I'm trying to find for a podcast. And please, anything I say, by all means, you all go ahead and try to do it too. I don't care, because I'm going to be talking about your podcast, and I want people to tune in. So I don't care if they get a double dose of it. You're going to approach it the way you approach it, but you do it. But I'm trying to find some Africans, because I want to ask them, is this what you basically feel you should be portrayed as? I want them to I want them to answer to me. Is this what you think basically your people should be portrayed as? Because they're not portraying my people in that show. They're portraying you Africans. Is this what you want? They have another show basically, and I can't remember the name, but it's about the fact that basically there's a soldier that comes back from, I think, Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, Al.
He brings Al. Yeah,
Al.
He
I don't
brings
watch
back.
any of them. I watch all the crime shows.
I watch it only because I'm trying to see exactly where they're trying to push the narrative. And this cat comes over from Afghanistan with, and you should see this, the way they portray this dude. And the show, it's, if you do nothing else, at least just watch one episode. And the only time I watch these shows again is when I see that they're about to make to flip the script or come up with something else. You know what I'm saying? And I want to see, okay, now where are they going with this? This thing that they're presenting.
Hey, Andino, on that TV show, Bob Hart Abishola. There's one episode, or there's one segment of episode where there's a black sister with Abishola and another African woman, and they were talking about the type of men that they would date in terms of categories. And like number one was a white man, number two was like a Nigerian man, number three was like a Latino, and the bottom of the barrel was a black man. And then the sister says, "How come you put the black man at the bottom?" And then the other Nigerian sister started speaking in like a hood black vernacular, as if we a bunch of ghetto, niggas. And,
like I said,
that was the agenda they were pushing on that show.
Like I said, the narrative, basically, you control the narrative, you control the message. Our narrative has always been controlled. Always.
I want to interject. Walter, are we coming up against it?
Yes, we passed it.
Okay. I know we needed to.
But it's
check on
with the delay with Andino. That
yes.
But I got one question, by the way, for you, Andino, more on a political point of view. What do you think about all this hoopla and this, all this stuff about China and the U.S.? I personally, I don't. That's another fight. I have nothing to do with it. It never done anything to me. But I think that China is, because they're the most patient people in the world. And they look at things in terms of 25 years, 50 years, 100 years. 100 years from now, this is what I want. That's the same thing they did with Hong Kong. Okay? So what about this big, this friction between the US and China? I think they're definitely a threat to the power of the US. I think they are.
Well, China is a threat basically to the world. It's not just the United States. Because you see,
I agree with that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree with that.
Yeah. Hey, look, China has figured something out that we should have known all along. China sat back and it watched us spend billions and trillions of dollars locked in war. And while we were basically spending all that money locked in war, Chinese philosophy was calculating how to basically take over the world and spend not a dime by virtue of the technology. And that's exactly what they've done. So China is a threat because China realizes it has the ability to, one, outnumber anyone on the battlefield. You kill 7 million of them and you still got 10 million more coming at you.
That's
They also have the ability to control the technology because they're not spending money on stupid stuff. They're spending it on everything that is relative to being able to invade cyber-wise your world and my world and what have you. And so the United States has been very foolish. They allowed a country that is definitely an enemy to usurp their authority in the realm of the technology in world. So yeah, they're dangerous. And the United States is going to have to kiss their rear end. There's a video, and I don't know whether this video is true. And I'll send it to you, Chris. I haven't sent it to anyone because I'm trying to determine if it's true or not. But there is a video that is out right now that is talking about the fact that the Chinese are now attempting to make sure that they reproduce life in the context of all of those that were lost by virtue of the virus. And it is a room full of Chinese people, all naked, having sex.
What?
I mean, it's a room full of them. I mean, it is filled. The women are all in a prone position. They're all being basically, dealt with from the back. And it's all the Chinese women and all of the Chinese men. And the caption is trying to replace the women or the people that were lost in the pandemic. Now, you got to see this to believe it, because it is real. It's not that it's some joke. It literally is real. It's got all the audio. You can hear them. You can hear the women basically going through, what they're going through. And the dudes, you could see them. And I'm like, that would make sense to me, because the Chinese are really about basically doing whatever they need to survive. They are like the ultimate supremacists.
Right. That's where I was headed. Okay.
And apex predators. They are apex predators. But like I said, Chris, I'll send it to you. But I just was amazed to see it. I was like, what?
Make sure it's something that you can send and you don't get in trouble for sending that through the waves.
Well, no. It'll be a DM. It'll be a private thing, basically. But I haven't sent it to anyone because I'm like looking at this like, and I'm trying to do research to find out, is this true?
I'm not surprised if you go to any Jewish community, you'll see you won't see that graphically, but they're reproducing. They're trying to get their numbers up.
Exactly, because
well, white people in this country are trying to get their numbers up. That's another reason they're getting really angry. I mean,
well, the bottom line is that's not going to happen for them, and you know why it's not going to happen?
What's that?
Because you see, all those white dudes basically have pissed white women off with all of the abuse, and all the stuff that they've done to them, and these women are now like, no. I mean, no.
Yeah.
No, I don't need you, and I don't need children. I can just go ahead basically and adopt, or I can have, to be inseminated, but I don't, so there's a whole other thing going on with them. And that's what I look at, because I kind of like say, you white guys, are always upset with black cats and, with black people in general, but you're your own worst enemy, and your own women are trying to denigrate you because of what you've done to them. And now you've made them powerful, really powerful.
Hey, Andino, I just want to circle back to China real quick. Like I said, I just turned 51 this year, and I can recall when I was a little boy, China was known as Red China, a communist state, and the people over there were in poverty for the most part. They were starving.
Right.
I recall when I was working at Columbia University, I was teaching there in the area of environmental sciences. And there was a professor, he was from Pakistan, and he couldn't think of the name. He was a little bit older than I am. At the time, I was in my 30s.
I'm getting some background noise. I'm sorry. I'm getting some background noise. Everybody go on mute, except Gene, please, and Andino.
So he was explaining to me that there was a Chinese dictator that took over when it was still Red China. And what he did was, he did one of those W.E.B. Du Bois moves and did the talented 10th. He took the top 10% of all the high school graduating classes, and he had the Chinese government pay for them to get educated abroad. So some went to like Oxford, University of Paris, Harvard, Princeton, and things of that nature. Now, the other Chinese, the other members of the Chinese government, they were in protest to the dictator because he said that, well, this was their argument, that once they became westernized, they wouldn't want to come back. And his argument, his rebuttal was, maybe some will stay where I send them to school, but many of them will come back and help build our infrastructure. And you know what, brother? When I look at it 30 years later, it worked. It worked. They went from Red China to being one of the most powerful nations on this globe. I can't remember the name of the dictator, but research that, brother. That's one of the ways, that's one of the main reasons why China is where they were. That dictator took a gamble
Yeah, that was Mao,
Mhm.
Chairman Mao.
Yeah, Mount.
Mao Zedong. Yes. All right, yeah. Yep. I
Yeah.
remember that, Gene.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. Red China. They were like North Korea. That's the way
Mm-hmm.
people looked at them. Backwards. All right. Anyway, we are pushing up against the clock here. I just want to thank again our guest, Andino Ward. And then I think Michelle put all your information in the chat box. But when the show notes go out, we will have your contact information. And you said you're going to be doing a podcast?
Yeah, the first podcast basically that'll be coming out it'll be on Spotify. Will be White Supremacy for Dummies. That's the title of it. It's a 2-part basically podcast. And from there, and like I said, I'm going to be dropping your names, your podcast name, because I'm going to be, again, I'm looking at creating a what's the word? I can't remember the word I was going to say.
A network?
I completely forgot. A network of basically folks who are doing some very positive things and really speaking the truth. They're not trying to play games with it. They're speaking the truth. And I consider you folks one of them. So I'm going to be dropping your podcast name in everything that goes on, as well as others that I am associated with and that I've spoke on. Because see, that's important. Yes. Either we start to tell the truth, no matter whether basically, it costs us whatever it may cost us to some degree, or basically this just continues, because the system of supremacy is a masterpiece. It is like watching a Gauguin or, a Rembrandt or a Beethoven. It is incredible, because you have to understand that it has lasted this long because it is something beyond comprehension. It really is. And it knows it is. And that's what makes it so dangerous, but yet so insidious and so basically covert. And it's what traps us.
And we definitely got to have you back on. And, and we will join you anytime you welcome us on your show.
Oh, hey, listen, you all basically are coming. So don't worry. There will be a show basically that is going to obviously bring you folks into the mix, because I want people to know who you are. I want people to know who you are. I want them to basically understand the context that we speak in, and the fact that you are in there like swimwear. You are about the truth.
Oh, yes, definitely. That is definitely the value proposition. Definitely. Truth. Can't go wrong with truth, right?
No.
Okay. So anyway, we are past the clock. I want to again thank Andino Ward. I want to thank Judy Andrews. And I want to thank all the panel members, everybody that helped make Walk Weekly what it is as a show. And thank the audience. And I hope our listeners can take something from this, which I think that's our goal. Every show, we want to put something out there that people can learn from. Okay, there's a takeaway. There's always a takeaway. All right. Now I want to thank our sponsors. And Greg, do you want to do the close? Do you want me to continue?
Hold on, Walter. I just got one thing. I got one thing. Big Swiney. Hey, Big Swiney. I'm gonna need the contact from Andino.
I'm here.
I'm gonna once the show is over, if it's okay, Andino, I'm gonna get your contact, and Chris could explain to you what I'm doing over here in the South Bronx, which is a predominantly Black community. It's anywhere from middle class to low income. I'm trying to do a lot of things to build up the projects that are within my district, and I just want to run some things by you, and I would love to have your advice, King, so that way I can move in the right direction and changing the mindset of the people in the projects, so we can match the Black people that are middle class within my district. And with that, I'll digress. Thank you for being on the show, brother.
I really appreciate all of you. And what have you, because again, basically, like I said, you are people basically who know exactly what's happening, and you all are people like me who are very tired of what's happening and want something basically more, than what we see. And that's important. That's important because, we may be able to stem the tide. I don't know, but we may be able to.
All righty.
God
Okay.
bless.
God bless. Now, I would like to say that this live show will be rebroadcast on Sunday at 3 p.m. All right. And we will be going out to all the major streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find the Walt Weekly podcast. Okay. And let me give you some of our social media handles. The Walt Weekly on Instagram, at the Walt Weekly on Twitter. Our website is www.thewaltweekly.com. And let's send some emails. If we're not, or if you got suggestions of how we can do the show better, that's one thing I always wanted to speak to you guys about. If you have suggestions or you think that we could do better, because we try to put out the best product that we can, but if we can do better, drop us an email. All right, the Walt Weekly at gmail.com. All right, and we will respond to you because we're very interested in where we are. All right, we just finished our 102nd show. And by the way, there is an episode that we will be releasing before the 4th of July, where we also do one-on-ones, where we were doing, we completed an interview with Walter Latham Jr., my son, who is the creator of the Kings of Comedy and the Queens of Comedy. Okay, so that is in the can, and it will be released before July 4th. All right, so we look forward to it, because it's going straight to the audio platforms. All right, Apple and the rest of them. All right, and thank you so much. I'd like to thank again, Chris. Great job on this, taking the lead on this. I really appreciate it, man. And just thank all the panel and thank all the folks, man. Okay, follow, like, and share.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. All right.
Be
Good
safe,
night,
be
guys.
well.
All
Take
right.
care
Be
now.
well.
All right, you too.
Thank you.